Was it the scar above my left eyebrow, a faint line Liam accidentally gave me with a toy truck when we were kids, that sealed my fate? Or was it just the way my parents looked at him, like he hung the moon while I was just there? It's funny how you build a life, brick by painstaking brick, believing you're creating something solid, something real, only for the foundation to crumble because the ground beneath it was poisoned long before you started building. My name is Ethan Carter. I'm 35 years old, living in a modest apartment in a quiet neighborhood of Minneapolis, Minnesota. For 5 years, my life had a center, Chloe Davis. She was vibrant, funny, beautiful, and she saw something in me that my own family never seemed to. She was my anchor, the promise of a future that felt miles away from the shadow of my past. My past was Liam, my younger brother Liam Carter. He's 32 now. From the moment he was born, he was the golden child. I was 3, and suddenly everything I did was wrong, and everything Liam did was perfect. He broke Mom's favorite vase. Oh, he's just a curious boy, Ethan. You should have watched him. I got straight A's. That's nice, Ethan. Keep it up. Did you see Liam's drawing? He's clearly gifted. The scar above my eye? Liam pushed me. I fell, hit the coffee table. He cried crocodile tears, said it was an accident, and I was the one who got yelled at for being too rough with him. It was a pattern that continued into adulthood. I worked 2 jobs to put myself through college, paid off my student loans, clawed my way into a stable career as a project manager at a construction firm downtown. My parents, Robert and Eleanor Carter, barely noticed. Liam dropped out of community college after a semester, declared he was an entrepreneur, and they funded a string of spectacularly failed ventures while praising his vision. They lived in a beautiful, large house in Edina, a wealthy suburb, maintaining a perfect facade. My apartment, while clean and comfortable, was worlds away from their manicured lawns and expensive cars. I met Chloe through a mutual friend, someone she knew from a brief relationship she'd had, ironically, with one of Liam's many ex-girlfriends. Chloe worked as a graphic designer. She was smart, had a quick wit that could make me laugh until my sides hurt, and a compassionate heart. She was everything I hadn't known I was missing. We fell in love quickly, moved in together after a year. Our apartment, a cozy place with a view of a small park, became our sanctuary. We talked about the future. Travel, maybe buying a small house, definitely kids someday. On our 5th anniversary, I proposed. It wasn't elaborate, just dinner at home, the ring I'd saved for months, and a heartfelt speech about how she made my life better. She cried and said yes, telling my family was anticlimactic. My parents managed a strained smile and a lukewarm, "That's nice, Ethan." My dad, Robert, mumbled something about marriage being a big step before changing the subject back to Liam's latest innovative business idea. Liam, though, his reaction was different. He slapped me on the back, grinned wide, and said, "Wow, Ethan, congrats. Didn't think you had it in you." His eyes, though, held a glint I couldn't decipher then. Looking back, I should have seen it. That predatory flicker the original poster mentioned. The next year was a blur of work and wedding planning. We were saving aggressively for a down payment on a house near Lake Harriet and the wedding itself. We saw less of each other, buried in our jobs and planning checklists. Chloe seemed more stressed, more distant, always on her phone, a small smile playing on her lips as she texted. She'd claim it was just work, or friends. She started going out more with her friends, coming home late, smelling faintly of cologne mixed with wine. I dismissed it as pre-wedding jitters, trusting her completely. The idea of her cheating, let alone with Liam, was beyond comprehension. Then, about 4 months ago, things changed. Chloe started getting sick in the mornings. She was moody, tired. My heart leaped. Could she be pregnant? We hadn't been actively trying, but we'd talked about wanting kids eventually. The thought filled me with a quiet joy. I started picturing nursery colours, imagining tiny hands. I planned how I'd support her, be there for her. One Tuesday evening, she sat me down. Her eyes were red-rimmed, tears streaming down her face. "Ethan," she choked out. I'm pregnant." My breath hitched. "Chloe, that's wonderful. Why are you crying?" I started to reach for her, excitement bubbling up. She flinched back. "No, Ethan, it's not yours." My world stopped. The air left my lungs. I stared at her, stunned into silence. Not mine? After 5 years? After everything? "Who?" The word was barely a whisper. She broke down completely, sobbing uncontrollably, finally mumbling, It's Liam. The name hit me like a physical blow. Liam. My brother, my golden child brother, who my parents always put first, who always had to win, who I tried for years to have a normal relationship with. Him? With Chloe? It couldn't be real. This was a nightmare. She spoke in hurried, broken sentences between sobs. It started at the engagement party. Liam cornered her, told her she was making a mistake marrying me, that she could do better, that he could give her the life she deserved. He played on her insecurities, whatever they were. It wasn't just one time. It had been going on for months. Months of lies, sneaking around, betrayal. While she was planning a wedding with me, she was sleeping with my brother. The ring on her finger. The texts. The late nights. The cologne smell. It all slammed into me, twisting the knife deeper. How many times had she looked me in the eye, lied to me while carrying my brother's child? The woman I loved, the woman I trusted implicitly, and the brother who had always been the thorn in my side. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Just felt this consuming wave of pain and absolute gut-wrenching betrayal. I told her to leave. I couldn't look at her. I couldn't be in the same room. She begged, cried, said she loved me. It was a mistake. But her words were meaningless against the weight of her actions. I just pointed at the door. She finally left, taking her tears and her betrayal with her. Alone in the apartment that had been our home, my sanctuary, I felt hollowed out. I picked up my phone, dialed Liam's number. I don't remember what I said. It was a torrent of pain, anger, accusations. He tried the casual approach first. Whoa, dude, calm down. It was just a stupid mistake, a drunken hookup. It didn't mean anything. A drunken hookup? After months? Months, Liam! She said months! And you got her pregnant! His tone shifted instantly, the casual facade dropping away, replaced by his familiar arrogance and cruelty. Well, maybe, he sneered, his voice cold. If you hadn't been so boring, she wouldn't have looked elsewhere. Maybe if you'd been a better fiancé, she wouldn't have come to me. That was it. The red mist descended. The years of resentment, the unfairness, the constant competition, the feeling of being less than, fueled by his smug voice on the other end of the line. I hung up, got in my car, drove towards his place in South Minneapolis, not sure what I intended to do, but needing to confront him, to make him understand, to make him feel something. When I got there, their cars were already in the driveway. My parents, of course. Liam had called them. He'd spun his narrative, I was sure. Poor Liam, seduced by my fiancé, a victim of circumstance, feeling terrible. And of course they believed him. They always believed him. I walked into the house. Liam stood in the living room, looking sheepish, playing the part. My parents were there. Mom, Eleanor, already looking at me with disapproval. Dad, Robert, standing with his arms crossed, a familiar look of disappointment on his face. Before I could even speak, Mom started. Ethan, honestly, you're making a scene. Family is everything. You need to forgive Liam, and you need to support Sarah, Chloe. She's pregnant. This is a difficult time for everyone. Support them? Forgive him? After this, the gaslighting was immediate and suffocating. They weren't hearing me. They weren't seeing my pain. They were only seeing their perfect son, slightly inconvenienced, and me, the problem child, disrupting the family harmony. Something snapped. Years of being overlooked, blamed and made to feel unworthy boiled over. The scar above my eye pulsed. Forgive him? I spat the words out, the years of bitterness lacing my voice. Support them? Are you serious? He slept with my fiancée. He got her pregnant, and you're standing here telling me to forgive him? Mom stepped forward, her voice rising. It was a mistake, Ethan. A complicated situation. You need to be the bigger person. Family. Family? I cut her off, my voice shaking with rage. You want to talk about family? You two wouldn't know family if it slapped you in the face. All you've ever done is favour him. Everything was always about Liam, his successes, his failures, his feelings. What about mine? Did you ever once stand up for me? Did you ever once make me feel like I mattered as much as he did? Dad finally spoke, his voice low and stern. Ethan, that's enough. You're being irrational. Irrational? I laughed, a harsh, broken sound. Is it irrational to be hurt? To be betrayed by the two people I trusted most? No. What's irrational is your twisted sense of loyalty. You can have him. You always wanted him more anyway. Liam is dead to me. He is no longer my brother, and you two, you no longer have a son in me either. You can have the perfect family you always wanted. Just the three of you." I turned and walked out, leaving them standing there stunned. I got back in my car and drove. Drove for hours through the night, the city lights blurring, eventually heading north towards the anonymity of the highway, just needing to be away from all of it. Away from them. When I finally pulled back into my apartment complex in the early hours of the morning, my phone was buzzing incessantly. Hundreds of missed calls and messages. From Chloe, pleading, apologizing, saying she loved me. From Liam, alternating between defensive accusations and half-hearted apologies. But most were from my parents, demanding I call them back, telling me I was overreacting, that I was tearing the family apart, that I needed to man up and fix this. I ignored them all. The apartment felt cold, empty, haunted by Chloe's presence and the ghost of the future we'd planned. I called in sick to work, using up all my accumulated vacation time. I barely ate, barely slept. I just sat in the silence, replaying every moment, every interaction, searching for the warning signs I'd missed, wondering where I'd gone wrong. Therapy felt like a distant, unobtainable concept. I was drowning in the sea of betrayal and gaslighting. 3 months passed like this, a blur of pain and isolation. I knew I couldn't continue. I needed help. I found a therapist, Dr. Evelyn Reed, whose office was in a quiet building overlooking Loring Park. Our first session was me just talking, rambling, crying, trying to make sense of the chaos. She listened patiently, her calm presence a lifeline. She was the first person who validated my feelings, who told me I wasn't crazy for being devastated and that my family's behavior was not normal or acceptable. She introduced me to the concepts of narcissistic traits, golden children, scapegoats, and gaslighting. It was like a switch flipped. Suddenly, years of confusion started to make a terrible kind of sense. With Dr. Reed's guidance, I started to build a fragile wall around myself. I changed my phone number. Moved to a new apartment in a different part of the city, nearer to Uptown. I thought the physical distance and the boundaries would work. I was wrong. My family wouldn't let go. They found my new address. They started showing up at my workplace downtown, trying to ambush me. My mother, Eleanor, would corner me in the parking garage, crying about how I was separating the family and how heartbroken she was. My father, Robert, left gruff voicemails telling me to man up and forgive Liam. Liam himself tried to approach me a few times, once outside a coffee shop, once near my new apartment. I managed to avoid him, heart pounding, the rage and fear a toxic mix in my stomach. Then came the flying monkeys. My parents weaponized extended family members, aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Suddenly, my phone would blow up with messages and calls. Family is important, Ethan. You need to let bygones be bygones. It was just a mistake, everyone makes them. They acted as if Liam getting my fiancé pregnant before our wedding and my parents supporting him was a minor tiff, not a life-altering act of betrayal. It was infuriating. They were living in a different reality, one my parents had carefully constructed. The most recent blow came yesterday. A letter in my mailbox. From Chloe. My stomach clenched just seeing her handwriting. I almost threw it away, but a morbid curiosity won out. Inside was a note, cheerful and sickeningly optimistic, talking about her and Liam's great excitement about the baby. An ultrasound picture was enclosed. She wrote about how the baby would love to have its uncle in its life, and how she hoped I could find it in my heart to be happy for them. She even dared to mention how she and Liam had found true love in trying circumstances. My vision blurred red again. Happy for them? Be the uncle? After they blew up my life? And my parents, who had been cold and critical of Chloe when she was with me, were now over the moon about becoming grandparents, completely ignoring the circumstances. I snapped. I grabbed my phone, unblocked Chloe's number, and called her. She answered on the second ring. I didn't yell. My voice was low, shaking with a cold fury I hadn't known I possessed. "You sent me an ultrasound picture?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "You want me to be happy for you? For him?" "For that," she started to stammer. "Ethan, I just thought." "You thought wrong," I cut her off. "You and Liam and that thing you created together can go straight to hell. Don't ever contact me again. Don't ever send me anything again. And don't you ever think for 1 second that I would want anything to do with that child. It's a monument to your lies and his treachery. As far as I'm concerned, you're all dead to me, every single one of you." I hung up before she could respond and blocked her number again. It wasn't my finest moment, but it felt like years of poison finally draining out. In that moment, standing in my apartment, the ultrasound picture clutched in my hand, I knew I had to leave. Not just the apartment, not just the neighborhood, the city. I had to get away from the constant reminders, the threat of running into them, the suffocating presence of their toxicity. That same evening, I called my manager at the construction firm. He'd been understanding about my time off and the incidents at work. I told him I needed a change, a big one. I asked about potential transfers to other offices. He mentioned an opening in Seattle, Washington, a challenging project manager role. It felt like a sign. I told him I was interested, immediately. He sounded relieved, probably envisioning an end to the workplace drama. He promised to fast-track the paperwork. By the next morning, it was official. I had 2 weeks to pack up my entire life and move across the country. Word spread fast, as it always does in families, even broken ones. My parents found out. Predictably, they were furious. They showed up at my apartment building again, ignoring the restraining order, trying to intercept me as I was hauling boxes to my car. My mother was crying hysterically, accusing me of abandoning the family, shattering her dreams. My father was red-faced, shouting about my selfishness and immaturity. I didn't argue. I didn't engage. I didn't feel the need to justify myself anymore. I just pulled out my phone and called the police, calmly stating that Robert and Eleanor Carter were violating a restraining order at my address. As the police arrived and escorted them away, my mother screamed, "You'll regret this, Ethan. Family is everything. You're throwing it all away." I just closed the door and went back to packing. Their words had lost their power. Liam's response was different. Perhaps because of the pending legal issues from the restraining order violation, he didn't approach me directly. Instead, he took to social media. He posted a long, rambling status about how some people just couldn't stand to see others happy, and how he and Chloe were overcoming hate to focus on their beautiful new family. It was clearly aimed at me, painting himself and Chloe as persecuted lovers. It stung to see the likes and comments pouring in, people supporting him, people who had no idea what had really happened. But I reminded myself that their opinions didn't matter. They didn't know the truth. One of the most unexpected responses came through Emma, Chloe's younger sister. Emma had reached out to me months ago, apologizing for Chloe's actions and offering support. She'd been a quiet source of information, letting me know bits and pieces about Liam and Chloe's life, that they'd moved in together, that Chloe was trying to portray herself as a victim, talking about how she and Liam were soulmates. After my phone call to Chloe, Emma told me that Chloe had completely broken down. She confessed to Emma that she was terrified of the future and finally admitted that what she and Liam had done was horrible. It was a small flicker of something, but it didn't change anything for me. Too little, too late. My cousin Amy, who had always been closer to me than my parents or Liam, called to offer help with packing. She'd been dealing with backlash from other family members for supporting me, but she stood firm. Amy also shared some behind-the-scenes family drama. Apparently, my mother's sister, my Aunt Carol, had a massive argument with my mother. Aunt Carol finally called her out on years of blatant favoritism towards Liam and how she had effectively driven me away. It got heated, with Aunt Carol telling Mom that she and Dad were reaping what they had sown. It was a small, grim satisfaction, knowing someone was finally calling them out on their behavior. The legal situation was still in flux. My lawyer assured me that my relocation wouldn't negatively impact the case. We were still pressing charges against Liam for violating the restraining order, and we were fighting his assault charge against me from the gym incident. Given Liam's history of ignoring the order and the circumstances of his provocation, my lawyer felt confident the judge would see through his lies. Moving across the country would also help demonstrate that I wasn't a threat to Liam, potentially helping to get his charges dropped. Packing felt surreal. Each box was a step away from the tangled mess of my old life. I sorted through memories, photos of Chloe and me that now felt alien, items that reminded me of family holidays that were never truly happy. It was painful, but also cathartic. I was shedding the weight of years of trauma. My last week in Minneapolis was quiet. I had final therapy sessions with Dr. Reed, who validated my decision to leave and gave me resources for finding a therapist in Seattle. I had coffee with Ben, who wished me well and promised to visit. I had dinner with Aunt Carol, a quiet moment of genuine connection before I left. I avoided my old neighborhood, my parents' neighborhood, and any place I might run into Liam or Chloe. The day of the move arrived. A moving truck, a flight booked for myself. I double-checked the restraining order paperwork just in case. The drive to the airport felt like driving towards freedom. Looking out the plane window as Minneapolis shrunk below, I felt a complex mix of emotions: grief for the life I'd lost, anger at the people who took it from me, and a fragile sense of hope for what lay ahead. Landing in Seattle felt like stepping into a different world. The air was cooler, cleaner, the city's skyline unfamiliar and full of possibility. My new apartment was smaller than the last, somewhat empty, but it was mine, a blank slate. No ghosts, no painful memories clinging to the walls. The first few days were a blur of unpacking, setting up utilities, finding the nearest grocery store, navigating new streets. It was lonely, starting over in a city where I knew no one. But it was also peaceful. The constant anxiety I'd felt in Minneapolis, the fear of running into someone, the weight of the harassment, was gone. Legal updates came through my lawyer. The charges against Liam for violating the restraining order were moving forward. His assault charge against me was still pending, but my lawyer was optimistic. He felt the relocation helped prove I wasn't a danger to Liam, and the pattern of his harassment was clear. It wasn't over, but I was no longer in the eye of the storm. I started my new job. It was challenging, demanding, and exactly what I needed. Something to focus on. Something to build. My colleagues were new faces, friendly but unaware of the storm I'd weathered. I could just be Ethan, the project manager, without the baggage of being the man whose brother got his fiancée pregnant. I found a new therapist in Seattle, continuing the work I'd started with Dr. Reed. Healing wasn't linear. There were still days when the pain felt fresh, when the anger flared, when I questioned everything. The image of Chloe and Liam together, building their happy family, still felt like a knife twist. And the thought of the child, innocent, yet a constant reminder of the betrayal, was something I still couldn't process without a physical wave of nausea. My decision not to be involved stood firm. It was the only way I could protect my own fragile peace. Months turned into a year. The legal battles eventually resolved. Liam was found guilty of violating the restraining order multiple times and given a stern warning and a significant fine. The assault charge against me was dropped. The judge saw it for what it was, a reaction to provocation and harassment, exacerbated by Liam's own violation of the order. It wasn't the grand justice I might have once craved, but it was enough. It was validation from an impartial system that I wasn't the one in the wrong, that their actions had consequences. I never heard from my parents or Liam directly again after the move. The restraining order and the distance were effective. The flying monkeys eventually